Cosmo, thank you for joining us on Sidewalks Entertainment. Pleasure to have you. Your day is going fine so far?
So far, so good.
Well, you are a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee. You were one of the first, in fact. You were an inductee before everyone was getting inducted, and you were one of the reasons why I started playing music. You're in the pocket drumming with Creedence, made a big difference to me and millions of musicians. So thank you for that. But one thing I don't know about you is drums the first instrument for you? Did you play piano or anything first?
I did not. In fact, I was buying records when I was 9. The first record I bought was Roll With Me Henry by Etta James. And then the second one was Bo Diddley by Bo Diddley.
Bo Diddley by Bo Diddley. Clever name.
Yes, and in those days, they were 78s. They weren't even 45s, and they were very brittle. My dad hated the music, and at any opportune time for him, he could step on one or drop it and break it. He would. I learned to keep my records out of sight. I wanted to play an instrument, and back then, rock and roll was predominantly saxophone for the lead instrument.
Sure.
Guitars were still back in the rhythm area, and once in a while they would come out and play a little something, but it wasn't dominant like it became and still is with guitars. So I'm really glad I didn't take up the sax. That wouldn't have worked for me in the long run. And I was watching a television, and I saw a special with the great Gene Krupa.
Mm-hmm.
He was in an outfield in a baseball stadium. There were about 10 sets of drums set up, and they never showed the band, but he was walking through as the band was playing and tapping on the cymbal stands and not really getting behind the kit. Well, when it was sing. So when the band hit the chorus, he sits down and started playing along with it, and I just said, that's what I want to do, but I want to play rock and roll. I don't want to do big band stuff, and that's what got me into playing drums.
That is actually where I was going to lead next, because if we're talking about drummers that came 5 years after you first found international fame, they usually go, well, Cosmo and Ginger Baker and John Bonham and Ian Pace, that's where they go. I was trying to figure out who your influences were besides Gene Krupa. Is there one or two other drummers at the beginning who were really there for you influentially?
Well, all the bands that were playing behind like Little Richard and Fats Domino and those cats were studio players.
Sure.
And had a big jazz influence and R&B influence, and really helped the music take shape that way. When then the Memphis sound was the white side of that, with Sun Records, Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, and that whole thing, and then the merging of those two things. But this side brought the guitars in, this side brought the the powerful drumming and rhythm section action. So that was a formation of the roots of rock and roll. So I would have to say Earl Palmer for sure as one of the guys, drummers. But my mentor and dear friend and one of the best ever, Al Jackson Jr. from Booker T and the MGs. Now I'll explain to the audience their one hit was Green Onions.
Yes.
And everyone thinks they were one-hit wonders, and that's what they did. Well, what they really did is they were the house band for all the artists at Stax Records. So when you heard Otis Redding, and you heard an Otis Redding record, that was Booker T and the MGs, and then the marquees were the horn section. So that was an in-house sound that was created at Stax. So Al Jackson had just the biggest pocket, and he had a very low tone, almost flappy, loose batter head. The batter head is the one you hit for his snare drum, and it just, it was just big and powerful, and he played it right, not too fancy, always in the groove, and we became friends, and he mentored me. He didn't give me a pair of drumsticks and put my fingers in a certain place. We didn't do any of that. We didn't even bring drumsticks out. But we talked philosophically about music, and he asked me at one point, "Well, what are your aims? What are your goals?" And I said, "Well, I want to be a metronome." And he says, "Why would you want to be a metronome?" And I says, "Well, you're just always on. You're never off." And he says, "A metronome is a machine. You're a human being. It's okay to be able to move the beat." And I'll illustrate here. This is the beat here, and you're playing along in the verse, and now a solo is coming up, and you kind of like that solo, and your heartbeat's maybe just a little bit faster than it would be. So it goes from the middle to this part. You're still on the beat, but you've moved it up a notch, and now the solo's over, and you got to settle back down to the verse, and so you bring it back down just naturally. You're almost, it's very subtle. It's very, very subtle, but it's what you're feeling, and he said that's what music's about. You feel it. So I am a feel player. And so I try to establish the groove first. That's really important, and I'll work around that within the framework of the beat. Because if you're here, you're rushing. If you're here, you're dragging. But here's that little fine area, and sometimes you're in the middle. So that was the greatest information I had ever received from anyone about my instrument, and I just from that point on, of course I'm going to try and have it in certain places, but it's okay to move it if it's subtle enough to for the average person won't really understand what just happened, but because of the subtlety of it. But your heart played a little bit faster when you went into that solo or into that chorus, and it's the humanness of the instrument, and every instrument, it follows through. So that was my friend. He unfortunately was murdered, died early, and it was a great loss for music everywhere and the world in general. He was just a terrific guy.
Well, you just helped explain a few things I was curious about. One of them being how a band with El Cerrito, California roots wound up with such a Southern style and Southern sound, to the point that a lot of people went, Creedence, that band from Louisiana. And you're like, nope, they're California guys and all that. But Creedence was your second band, correct? You and Stu had a band before Creedence?
Yeah, Stu, John, and I started it. It was called the Blue Velvets. We're an instrumental trio. And that's how we started playing as a unit together. Stu played piano. He didn't play bass. The bass was his left hand. And with John had a Silvertone amp, which is from Sears and Roebuck, a cheap little amp. You could barely hear it. And he had that, his guitar running through that. And I had a piecemeal set of drums until I finally had saved up enough money and went out and mowed enough lawns to have the money to buy a really beat up from the 30s kit. And I refinished it and carried it all out, and it sounded okay. And that was my first set. But we would be graced by Tom Fogarty coming in to some of our gigs if he was around. He was very supportive of us, and he would sing over the band because we weren't very loud. And of course, everybody's parents said that you guys are too loud. And no, we're not too loud, but yes, you are. Okay, well, we'll worry about that later. But anyway, so he would come in and sing maybe 3 or 4 songs, and then bid us farewell, and that's how that was going to end up being the nucleus of the band. And Tom took us into the studio to record demos to try and get a hit. He was in a band called Spiderweb and the Insects, and they were really good, but prototypical musicians. And when he asked him to learn these 2 songs, they said, "Why?" And he says, "Well, we're going to go to the recording studio in Oakland, and we're going to record these songs. Then I'm driving to LA and trying to shop it to get a deal." And they said, right. Are we getting paid? He said, "No, it's going to cost me a fortune to do this, not only in dollars and cents, but in time spent." He had a job and he had to schedule everything just right. And so they said, "Are there going to be any chicks there?" And he goes, "No, we're going there to focus on our future. This is an opportunity for you guys." They said, "We'd rather work on our cars." That's a direct quote. So he asked us if we wanted to back him up, and we said, "And then make a record?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh man, this is exciting. This is what we want to do." So we were Tommy Fogarty and the Blue Velvets in that framework, and then the Blue Velvets when we were playing gigs without Tom. And then finally we realized that it wasn't quite the way a band should be. We can't have a piano be our bass. So Stu, you're going to have to learn how to play the bass. And of course, he did a terrific job. They played a lot of songs with my old dear friend Stu Cook, and that's how it started. And we kept recording, and our name was changed to the Gollywogs, which we hated. But the owner of the record company said, "You have to have a gimmick. You have to have a gimmick." And we said, "How about you have to have a hit? How about that?" And it was back and forth, and they put us in these silly uniforms and called us the Gollywogs. Finally got to the point where they sold the label to Saul Zaentz, and we changed our name to Creedence Clearwater Revival. And finally, after 10 years, we had our first hit.
And you had that first huge, massive wave of success. Then I would say with Creedence Clearwater Revisited, which formed in '94, correct?
Actually, 95.
Okay, 95, and it had a good 25-year run right there of theaters. Or is the farewell not over?
No, the farewell is over for that project. We've done everything that we could. We never expected to have a 25-year run. We were hoping to have 4. We were hoping that people wouldn't throw, fruit at us. We didn't know how it was going to go over. We really didn't, and it was embraced by the public. And John wasn't playing his own songs, and as a result of us going out and doing it, then he started playing his own songs. He'll never say that. He'll never admit that we had anything to do with him going back to his music, but that's what happened. And then he sued us, and we won, and we went for 25 years. Now my body won't let me travel, and I can't I have Parkinson's, so it's I told Stu, we only played Creedence songs, of course, with Revisited. We revisit the music of Creedence Clearwater Revival. I said, we're going to have a non-Creedence song to the set. He said, no, we're not. And I said, yeah, we are. He said, what are you talking about? I said, we need to put shake, rattle, and roll in there. Little Cosmo humor, so much so that it's stuck in my throat here. But so there was the second career, and now I've just started my own record label. It's Cliff Song Music, and I have a distribution deal with Sony Orchard, Bob Frank and his company. So I've got the big distributor with a team of individuals that work radio and streaming and all that. And I'm doing what I'm doing now. I'm doing 2, 3, 4 of these every day, interviews, podcasts, anything I can do to get the word out on this new record, which in my opinion is one of the better rock and roll records that I've heard lately. And I don't mean to brag, but how could I not brag when I have such great players surrounding me on this record, and including Steve Wright, who is no longer with us, unfortunately, but terrific bass player. He and I wrote all the music and all the songs, and I produced all the sessions, and just had a great group of guitar players. Joe Satriani's on there.
Yes, he is.
Jimmy Lyon is on there. Greg Douglas is on there. I mean, these guys, it's a pretty pedigree bunch of guys. And a couple of guys from, on keyboards that are terrific, Pat Mosca and Timmy Gorman, who just terrific. So I'm really excited about it. We have a single that's out called "For All the Money in the World." It's the first track on the album, and it was just released 2 or 3 days ago. So, and the album will be released on the 27th of August. But if you go to the single, you can access the album that way. You can order it, or so there are ways to hear it without waiting for the 27th of August.
Did you have a lot of unreleased music over the years just sitting there?
I still do, and it's called Cosmo's Vault, and most of the recordings are in a 10-year period between 78 and 88. And I did a lot of songwriting with a lot of different people. I like to co-write because somebody that I'm working with has something that I don't have, and I have something that they don't have. So that's the whole idea of it. Otherwise, you write them yourself. I do write songs by myself on occasion, but it's not quite as much fun as sharing with somebody else. And you come up with something, and you call them up. Hey, listen to this. I finally figured the chorus out on this tune, and I can't call myself up and do that. Well, I did it once, but there was alcohol involved. And I won't work with more than one person. That's another thing I've learned. You take what they have, and you give what you have. But if you add that third guy, they're always trying to. It's just too many cooks. I like garlic, but don't try and invent the clove. It's kind of like that.
When I speak to drummers who are also songwriters, I find that there's 2 kinds of songwriters within the drummer camp. One is that they just hear a melody and a beat in their head, and then everyone writes around that. And then the other one is they actually hear the whole thing in their head produced, and then they sing the parts to the other people. Are you one of those 2 kinds of writers?
I'm the second kind. In fact, our singer, Keith England, who does a terrific job on this record, and one of the reasons, I have many reasons, but one of the reasons I would really like to see success with it would be for him. He's been doing it for 30 years and hasn't had that break yet. And he's a great guy and really did a fabulous job. And as a songwriter, and primarily a lyricist in the role here, it's really good to have a singer who's listening to what you're telling him, because I can't sing like him. I wish I could, but I can't. So I would take the finished songs to him, and I would sing them, sing it exactly the way I had written it, and once in a while he'd have a change, a subtle change, and I said, stick with that. I like what you're doing there. But most of the time I knew what I wanted. I'd heard, like you say, I'd heard the thing in my head for so long. I wanted to get it out, get it done, and go to the next song. So yeah, there is, and I like to hear the finished product. I can hear the way Steve and I would write would be usually a guitar, and then we'd go to a rental space, and I'd have a drum set in there, and sometimes I would just be playing a groove, and he would jump in with the guitar, and all of us, there's an idea, so we had little cassette players. We'd grab a quick, like a note taker, record that part of the song that we're going to use, and then go to the next. And then sometimes he would start off with the guitar playing a certain thing, and then I would jump in with what I thought would work with it, and then we would come up with the chords. A lot of times I would come up with the melodies, especially the verses. Of course, the money part of it, and I mean that figuratively only, is the chorus. The chorus is the money part. That's why you have a verse, so you can describe the ideas to make that chorus work. And then, of course, the chorus generally is repeated every time, and the verse is different because it's telling the story about that part of the song. So yeah, we had a really good writing combination of that. When you hear it in this record, there's a lot of there's 11 songs in there, and it's not one song repeated. There's a lot of different things happening. Each song has its own personality, like a chapter in a book. And so that's another reason I'm very excited to get it out there and share with the world. I can do more than play drums.
For sure. Well, do you have time for 2 quick questions? At least I think they're quick questions, and then I'll let you go.
Sure.
Okay. First question that I have for you is, when I think about you and your career, I mentioned before the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing, before everyone was. When you got inducted, it was pretty much the Beach Boys, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Little Richard. That's who was inducted. So clearly you matter on that end. You've sold over 100 million albums with Creedence. You've had more covers than just about any other artist that I can think of. Then you've also maintained creativity over the years. As you mentioned, you wrote a lot in the 70s and the 80s. Creedence Clearwater Revisited took off in the late 90s, continued into the 2000s, 2010s, and the early 2020 stretch right there. So I look at just all this long-term success. But was there anything that you never accomplished that you're still hoping you will accomplish as a performer?
Yes, I'd like to get a Grammy.
You never won a Grammy.
No, Creedence was never even nominated for a Grammy. We've never had one as Creedence, and I would like one, just because who wouldn't anyway? But if I could do something, if I could top something that Creedence did, that's kind of the chip on my shoulder. It's a good chip. I mean, you set goals, and when I set goals, I try to set attainable goals. And I'm listening to this record, and I think about all the love and all the energy that I put into it, and all the performances that the guys that are on it did. Thank you, gentlemen. It would be really nice to have a Grammy, but basically, it would be really nice just to chart. Creedence recently just had its first #1 slot in our 53 history.
Yeah.
We had more #2s than anyone else, and I used to call us the Avis of rock and roll because Avis, we try harder. It's a car rental thing and an advertisement, but we never had one. I'd like to see Creedence get a Lifetime Achievement Award. That would be pretty nice. But I would like to chart and do well. This thing, it's not about money. It's far from it. That's not even it's not even on the table. I don't care about that. I care about recognition of an art form that it's not. I've had success as a drummer, and I've been there and I've done that, and I'm proud of it. And it's really cool when I run into younger guys, and they say, oh man, you're the reason that I started playing drums. And that's the same thing that Al Jackson did for me. I call it passing the baton. He passed me the baton. Now I'm passing the baton. So it's fun to run into guys that you've had an influence on with their music, and then it's cool when you run into fans who you had an influence on with the music, and they're listeners, they're not performers or players of an instrument. They're just lovers of music. They love Creedence, and that's a pretty cool thing to affected people's lives like that.
And the last thing I want to know, speaking of passing the baton, is the couple of times I got to see Creedence Clearwater Revisited live, I had the realization in the middle of the show of every single one of these songs was a tremendous hit. And I can think of a cover that was done of this song by another artist. So when you think of the artists that have covered Creedence over the years, you think of Tina Turner and the Foo Fighters and Kid Rock. It just really never ends in terms of who covered the band. I was curious if you had an all-time favorite cover of a Creedence song.
Oh, sure. Tina Turner. She we couldn't play Proud Mary next to her on the same stage.
Elvis.
Oh yeah, Elvis. I've got it. This is a good one. But I never met Tina. But when we were touring back in the day, the company was Concerts West, and they were kind of the cream of the crop for as far as people that did what they do. They put tours together for bands, work the tour while they're out there, just take 10%, which is more than worth it what they do.
Yeah.
And they were the best. And their roster was only 4 artists. It was Elvis, Frank Sinatra, the Beach Boys, and Creedence Clearwater Revival.
To cut you off for a second, that was Jerry Weintraub's company?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You were a rare company there.
Yeah, Tom Hewlett was the guy that would go on the road, travel with us. Well, Elvis was coming to the Oakland Coliseum. That was our stomping ground, and he said, Elvis wants to meet you guys. We said, really? They said, yeah. He says he loves your music, and knows that that you're with us, and he wants to meet you. So we'll see you Saturday night or whenever it was. So we go, and there's Elvis, and it's just, and this is so cool. There he is. We're looking down, and we had backstage seats, sort of, but up where you could see we were actually just even with him. It's a good place to watch someone perform.
Yeah.
We had the great seats, and so he finishes the song, and he's in his white leather suit. And that's when he was trim and really, man, just a stud. He comes up to the mic. He says, "I know they're out there. I know they're out there. This one's for the Creedence boys. 2, 3, 4," and goes into Proud Mary. Wow.
Wow.
I get teary-eyed every time I think about it.
I can imagine, and I'm going to look for the bootleg of that show so I can hear that. So thank you for giving me some homework there, Cosmo.
Yeah, and so we can't wait now. We get the show over so we can go meet Elvis. And when we got down there, Elvis had left the building. He had a death threat, as he had many. But he said, Tom said, he said, sorry, he couldn't hang around, but he said, love your music, and sorry, I missed you, but Elvis dedicating our song. Woo!
I can only imagine. Thank you so much for your time, man. Looking forward to more of those Cosmo cuts coming soon, man. Thank you for everything, man.
Oh, thank you. And there's more in that vault. There a couple of surprises.
Satriani is a great surprise as it is, so keep it coming, man.
You got it.
Thanks, Cosmo. Take care.
Peace.
Paltrocast.